Sarah Hanks, today's guest, is the CEO and founder of CrowdCheck, an industry-leading fintech company providing regulatory compliance services to entrepreneurs, issuers, and crowdfunding portals. She is an expert in the regulations governing investment crowdfunding. She'll share insights about her work and her superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. Sarah, thanks for joining me again. I am so thrilled to have you back.
Thrilled to be here.
Well, you and I chatted just before, and we've known each other for a decade now. And
it's amazing how long it's been since the Jobs Act.
Yeah, it really has, and it took so long for it to be implemented. But it has, in many ways, become just what you thought it would be a decade ago, isn't it?
Just about. I mean, I made some mistakes in predicting what would happen. And I think one of the things that we learned is the order in which the various Jobs Act exemptions were adopted made a huge difference. The fact that 506C came first, then Reg A, then Reg CF. And I think we would not have, CrowdCheck, as you know, has a leading position in Regulation A. I wasn't expecting Reg A to be crowdfunding, but it is. And if it hadn't been adopted before Reg CF, I think that might not have happened. People might not have realized its true, potential.
Yeah. It is amazing what is going on. Let's take a minute to set the table. Tell us about the great work that CrowdCheck is doing.
Okay. Well, I mean, that changed too, because back in the day when we first met, CrowdCheck was just CrowdCheck Inc. And we were just doing due diligence. And that expanded over the years. It expanded into not just due diligence reports, but actually putting disclosure together, doing the notice filings, and all of those things. And then, of course, CrowdCheck was founded by securities lawyers, so people kept asking securities law questions. And bless them, lots of people would send us chocolate afterwards after we answered the questions. And we started thinking, we should actually charge fiat money for this, as opposed to getting paid in chocolate. Yeah. And so, over the years, it's expanded to, CrowdCheck plus CrowdCheck Law provide a complete range of services for crowdfunding. Legal, compliance, diligence, filing, all together or individually. So we're just a complete compliance solution.
And your clients are typically issuers or portals?
It's kind of both. In the early days, a couple of the prominent portals, we actually did their due diligence for them because they didn't have anyone to do it in-house. We developed their program, they took it over and started to do the diligence in-house, and we then just represented the issuers for those portals. But that's a sort of natural progression. We help portals stand up. We help them, we put their rules together, we put their processes together, they grow up, they go through kindergarten, they go through securities, high school, we pat them on the backside and send them off into the world, and they can do their own stuff. But we do have this consistent, pretty much everybody we've ever worked with continues to send their issuers to us when they need securities and corporate law advice.
What are the tricky parts of raising money through crowdfunding? What are the legally tricky parts that people might stumble on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because you started off saying, what are the tricky parts? And for me, the trickiest part is the marketing, which we are absolutely useless at. As lawyers, we just hey, marketing is really important. Get people who know marketing, because it's not us. But the legally tricky stuff is really, it's sort of playing the psychiatrist to our clients, because we have to convince them that this really, really does matter. And when you put out, for example, you go on TikTok, you mention your deal, that's all fine. If you don't have the correct legend, or if you don't have a link to the offering circular, if it's a Reg A offering, that's going to be absolutely fatal because you've just violated securities law. And making people understand that these rules are not there just to irritate the heck out of you. They are there because these are the rules that protect investors, and if you don't get them right, the SEC cares, and we frequently have these conversations where they say, "Well, we only, the SEC is not going to care about that." And we're like, "Yes, they do. We know them, and they do care about this."
Yeah,
That's the trickiest part, is convincing people that they really do have to listen to what we say.
I can imagine. Now, I think there's a sense with a lot of entrepreneurs that if they do something wrong and no one waves a red flag and the deal closes, that they have uh, escaped clean. Like driving too fast on the freeway, if you don't get a ticket while you're there, you're done. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry that speeding experience is going to come back to bite you. Is that true with securities?
No, it is so absolutely not true. It's amazing. I mean, we get this all the time. It's not just the guy who just disobeyed the rules, but it's everybody else who said, "Well, look what they did." We often have, the mom conversation. Well, if everybody jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you do it? But that's part of the problem here, is understanding that it takes the SEC about 2 years to think about, well, maybe they really shouldn't have done that, and another year to issue the subpoena, and another year to capture the information. I mean, we've got people who are receiving subpoenas for stuff they did in 2017. I mean, the SEC is out there, and just because somebody did something recently doesn't mean A, that they're going to get away with it, and B, that you're going to get away with it if you copy them, because that is not, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and following somebody else that did something that their lawyers said you shouldn't do, also not an excuse. But it just takes a while for the SEC to sort of gather the information.
And some of the worst possible outcomes, not to scare people too much, but some of the worst possible outcomes can happen way down the road, right?
Yeah.
Someone can allege fraud,
Yep.
and that they couldn't have discovered the fraud for one reason or another until long after, and that it kind of stretches the uh, what do you call it, the dates when it expires,
Yeah,
right?
the statute of limitations.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
that's sort of like, in some cases, a 5 year or a 10 year. Yeah, it could be a while. I mean,
yeah.
and that also, we live, especially when we're dealing with tech companies and the like. People are used to instant. I need to get this product out. I push the button and move fast, break things, and that is absolutely the wrong motto. When the things you break are the securities law, that is really a bad idea.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to scare people. I want to encourage people to use crowdfunding. There are some great benefits to this whole rigmarole, this whole structure, right? Um, the disclosures that people make help with doing due diligence. If you're an individual investor, right? There's a crowd along with you, right?
That's right. I mean, you can get. I mean, I've been a fan of crowdfunding since the very, very beginning, even though I come from a super traditional securities law background, and the ability to take the people who believe in you, the team, who believe in the product, your customers, the ability to let them, you know, be part of the success of a company, that is no small thing. And there's a lot of, feedback from, if you're raising money at the same time, it maybe helps with the product, and then the product can advertising can help with the securities offering, providing it's all done correctly. And so that there's huge advantages to crowdfunding if done correctly.
And one of the keys right? To maybe oversimplify, but one of the keys is to make sure you're investing through a registered portal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is where the various pieces of the Jobs Act divert because, Regulation D to accredited investors, you can do that without a portal. Regulation A, you can do without a portal, but if you don't use a broker, there's all sorts of additional rules. But Regulation CF, absolutely, you have to go through an intermediary. And everything's got to be in the same place. I mean, this is one of the fundamental principles of crowdfunding as envisaged by the SEC, is you have one place and one place only where all of the information is available, so everybody's on an equal playing field. And that's why you can't say stuff on TikTok that you don't say on the intermediary site. And you can't, go outside. There are very strict rules about communications and advertising, even though those rules are really counterintuitive. And we have these conversations with clients who go, "All right, so I can say all of this stuff about my company, so long as I don't mention what I'm actually selling." Or if I mention what I'm selling, I can say, I can give you, the bare facts. And you're just making this up, aren't you? I know this is how the rules work, but the rules are not completely arbitrary. There's a whole principle there, and the principle is everything in one place, everyone on equal footing, everybody's got access to the same information.
Yeah. And that equal footing really does help investors. And by helping investors, it helps the issuers, the entrepreneurs who are raising money.
Absolutely, yeah. And,
Yep.
and and one of the things about the that input from the crowd that does help. I mean, you sometimes see, as you know, the intermediaries have to have a chat function, and that's where the crowd makes comments and asks questions. And I've seen there's quite a range. I've seen some amazingly good, sophisticated questions come from the crowd, which have really helped the company hone its message, and improve the way it's communicating. And then occasionally you get the absolute trolls. I mean, you're never free from trolls. They're everywhere.
Yeah. So let's uh, talk a little bit about SuperCrowd 22. You'll be speaking at SuperCrowd 22. I'm thrilled that you'll be there. We'll be talking about impact crowdfunding and how people can use crowdfunding to make a difference in the world. Um, Give us a glimpse into some of the insights you might share at SuperCrowd 22.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be sort of focusing on my usual, you all are doing it wrong. Because I mean, this is the thing. We are now seeing, as I mentioned, we're seeing the SEC take all of this stuff very seriously. At first, I think they were very cautious. They didn't want to kill this industry. But now I think, some patterns are coming very, very clear. And those, I'll be talking about what the regulators want from the intermediaries. What are the things that are really causing them problems? And then what do the regulators, which is for the issuers, the SEC, what does the SEC want from the issuers? And I think one of the biggest stories there is transparency, accuracy, and misleading statements. I mean, um, you know, we are seeing some interest by the SEC on things that issuers have said about themselves and their prospects. And so I think we'll try and pull out some of those those threads of common themes that we see with the SEC caring about.
Yeah, I mean, the value of what you'll provide, it could cost, save people a lot of money and keep them out of jail. Just coming to hear you is worth it. But the conference is going to feature just such an inspiring range of topics and content, so that people who come will be inspired, they'll be motivated, they'll be educated, and they'll get to hear from you and be that much farther from ever seeing the inside of a jail cell.
Yeah, I will. I
So,
will point out the SEC does not own any handcuffs. The SEC only has civil authority, so they can sue the heck out of you. They can leave you, as one enforcement director once said, homeless, naked, and without wheels. They can't put you in jail. It's they have to hand that over to the Department of Justice. But let's try and avoid both of those things.
yes,
We want
good
everyone
tip.
to keep their money and keep their wheels.
Yes, good point. And that's what you'll help us do. So
Yeah.
we're excited to have you at SuperCrowd 22. Um, Sarah, you really are an extraordinary human being. You're successful, you're accomplished, and yet I also find you to be extremely wise and down to earth. You're just really a great human being.
Oh, thank you.
What is your superpower?
Um, in crowdfunding, I think it's the ability to explain relatively arcane concepts in fairly straightforward terms without terrifying the pants off people, and try and keep them from panicking, and not you know, um, not completely lose it when they get a phone call from the SEC. I mean, I've seen it all on Wall Street. I've been screamed at from managing directors at Goldman Sachs who think that they're going to sue me for $10 million every minute that the market hasn't opened. I've seen it all before, and I'm not going to panic. But we're going to try and get people through. But I think underlying that, I think the reason why I'm able to do that is basically a sort of values thing, which is I really believe in. I believe in rules. I believe in the social contract. I believe in all of the stuff that came out of the Enlightenment. And we're taping this just after the 4th of July, which I'm always so proud of the Declaration of Independence. It is the most English thing that has ever been written, coming out of Enlightenment thought. And it's basically, the idea that, you do have a relationship with society and you have to, you don't get something for nothing, Um, and a rules-based society is going to be a successful society. And seeing us as part of, as the SEC says, the gatekeepers, the people who understand the rules and guide. And we have a responsibility. I mean, it's a responsibility not just to the clients who are paying us, but to the broader society to make sure those rules are complied with. Because if we don't comply with the rules, everything goes to heck.
Yeah, it's fascinating what you describe, but that sense of connection to the Enlightenment, that sense of social contract, respect for rules, uh, that's powerful. That's powerful. How would you teach someone to develop greater strength in an appreciation for those principles?
That's a really good question because I mean, my previous life, I did international securities law, and one of the things I would actually fairly frequently and boringly to my associates joke about is how difficult it is to enforce the securities rules on people from countries who have not gone through the Enlightenment. Because they just don't. They think everything's a zero-sum game. They win and the SEC loses, and that's the way they want it to be. They don't see this as part of a whole. But I think that's the way you have to look at it. And I don't know how you teach that to people who don't come from that background. And it's always extraordinary to me how deeply embedded that is in so many societies and how absent it is in others. And I worked a lot with Brazilian companies, and my Brazilian clients were always like, "Hey, is there a little trick? Is there a jatinho there that we can do?" And I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, "Okay, we get it," because that's their background. But some other jurisdictions, it's just like, "Well, look, what do you want us to say?" The truth kind of would be useful.
Yeah.
And they just don't get that. They want to, they think that I wanted them them to lie to me, and yeah, that's not how we
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a challenge. Uh, and you talk about the context, right? The national context for that. And I'm thinking of Lech Walesa. And you may be too young to remember him,
Oh no, I
but
remember him well.
but he seemed to find the way to communicate this value system, this new value system, to people that really hadn't experienced it for a long time, if they
Yeah.
had before. Um, I'm just wondering if you see that parallel, and maybe there's an opportunity for a hope for convincing people over some long run or with some dynamic leader that yes, there is a different, new, better value system than a winner take all kind of
Uh,
approach.
I don't know, that is such a challenge. I mean, that's where I'm going to say, well, I'm glad that in crowdfunding, it's only American and Canadian companies, and those I can deal with. If I had to deal with a Russian company at this point, that would be a huge challenge. I don't
Yeah.
know how you convince people that who for whom that is an alien idea, that truth and transparency is actually good for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine, though, even within the American Western context, where we sort of collectively generally appreciate these things, there are exceptions. When you're dealing with someone, a client who really seems to not get it, even here in the United States, how do you coach them to appreciate that they have to play by the rules?
Um, well, yeah, threats always work. But usually, I mean, to be serious, if they don't get the whole, you must do this, we know the SEC that, and this is required, we know these rules. I mean, there have been occasions where we've had to say, you and we are not necessarily on the same wavelength, and we think you might be more comfortable with some other counsel or some other compliance provider. Because we don't get paid enough to get into long philosophical conversations with our clients. One of the things that CrowdCheck does, it does very sophisticated work at an amazingly cheap price, and we can only do that if we can do the same thing the same way every single time. And if somebody is like, well, no, I don't want to do it that way, there is a point at which it just doesn't work for us.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Well, Sarah, it's just a delight to visit with you. Can't wait to hear more from you at SuperCrowd 22. I'm so grateful that you'll be speaking there. Before we wrap up, would you just take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about CrowdCheck and how they can connect with you?
Yep. I'm available at Sarah, that's SARA, at crowdcheck.com. Go to our website, which is horribly out of date, but still has really good stuff in two particular areas, and that is our blog, where we are forever doing hey, here's another way you're doing it wrong, folks. So lots of good content on our blog. And then under resources, education, we've got lots of memos and the like. And so there's some very useful information there.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being with us today. We wish you every success in keeping issuers, especially our social entrepreneur friends, out of jail and out of trouble. So thank you and good luck to you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
All righty. Let's do some good. Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers, 4, good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devonthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.